Alright, let's go inside.
Hi guys, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make one of these mushrooms. A hollowed out one, this is the end grain. I'm also going to show how to do these grooves in here, the piercing. That'll be at the end of the video. First, I've got a blank here. This is a piece of tawa. I turned in 23 when it was green. It's been about 2 years, good 2 years now, so it's nice and dry, or dry enough. And now I'm just going to stick it in the lathe and we'll get started. Alright, so mounted here on the lathe now, between centres. And it's best if you've got a tapered blank to have the bigger side as your top. This will be the top, this will be the bottom. And the first step we're going to do is we're just going to true this up, and then I'm going to stick tenons in on either end. So now what we're going to do is we're going to figure out our proportions. This one here was just a practice, it's not quite in proportion. But basically what you want is you want this taper bit here to be a third, and then you want a straight third, and you want this to be a third. So you have 3/3 overall. So sort of 2/3 for the base, and a third for the bulb at the top. So I'll just mark this down now. And one trick I like to do is I sort of like to use the inches. I mean, you can do centimeters, but it's easier with a smaller number. And you put the edges on, so we want 3 inches won't get to the edge, but 6 inches will. If we just put this on a tilt like so the edges are matching up pretty close. So now if we go 2 inches, that's 1/3, that's the second third. Just follow these around. So yeah, that first third is going to be pretty much your whole taper, plus a recess that's going to be on the bottom. The next third is going to be pretty much most of straight, and then the top third is going to be your bulb of the mushroom. So now what we want to do is we want to do the main of the bulking work now. So we're going to hollow out all this piece here, but we're going to make sure that we leave this diameter here is going to end up being 5 mils bigger than the drill bit in here. And that's just so you can have a wall thickness. So the inside here is going to be drilled, so you want this here to be thicker than your drill, so I'm going to say 5 millimeters. So the inside diameter of this one was 10 millimeter, and that shaft there is 15 or so. You're better to go maybe a little bit bigger than 5 millimeters, because you half that's the wall thickness. So these are only about 2.5 millimeters on these walls, and you do that for each side. That's your 5 millimeter. So if you only had 2 millimeters, your walls would only be 1 millimeter thick, and that's too thin. So I just got some calipers here set with that thickness so I don't go too far, and we'll do the main hollowing out now. The main shaping now, I'm just going to use spindle gouge, and we're going to do most of this taper and this bit here and a little bit of this, but we can't do much because that tenon is on there. Alright guys, I just noticed I got a little crack here, so I'm just going to put some glue down it. Doesn't go very deep by the looks of it. It's the same crack here. So I'll just come back once that glue's gone off. Now the glue's all dry. Just like to mention, you don't actually need to make a tenon on this end. I did screw up there. You only need to make a tenon on the top side, because when you flip this around you're actually using the recess, not the tenon, which I'm about to do. But first I'm just going to clean up this glue that's on here. Alright, that's cleaned up now. Now I can take this out between centres, put the chuck on, flip this around and mount it in the chuck. So yeah, I like to, when I'm mounting it on the chuck, is I like to drive it with the tailstock in and then close the jaws up. So it's just in there loosely at the moment. And tighten the tailstock up, and then the jaws. Both sides on the jaws. And you can see we're running pretty much bang on. So now what we want to do is we want to hollow out this end and make a recess before we do the back hollowing, or the hollowing on this top of the bulb. Because if you hollow down on the shaft too much it will get flimsy. But I like to make this shape before I do the inside so I can use calipers. And I can also get that diameter proper. So I'll just move you guys around here so you can see me doing this inside. Alright, I've got you turned around now. Now I'm just going to turn this tenon off here. Like I say, you don't actually need this tenon on here. You can just have a centre point. Alright, now I'm just going to use a spindle gouge, and I'm just going to back hollow most of this out, and then I'll finish it off with a scraper. If it does get too chattery vibratory, I can use one of these steady rest around here if I need to. I don't like them because they're quite loud and they normally damage the wood. So we'll just see how we go. So yeah, as you might have saw, I did get a little catch on that. I wasn't paying attention as usual. And here's the rain, that's the usual thing as well. So anyways, got the recess here done. Just used the various scrapers and back hollowed this little funnel. And you might have seen me use the calipers. I just go in there and I find the thinnest spot. And I know if I can't go any further, I know it gets thicker. And I do want it slightly thicker around where the recess is. So yeah, in here you can actually see it's actually thicker down here, and that's because it's got the drawer right up against it. So if I did it just a millimetre or two, it would probably break. Alright, I got the hole in there now drilled. Now I can just use my calipers, find the minimum measurement in there. I just felt my fingers and sort of eyeballed where it needs to be, and then I can follow that forward until this hole in here tapers off nicely. So you can just go in, find the thin spot, and then to make it all even you just go forwards, and then with a pencil you can mark sort of whereabouts you need to take material off. Alright, now the bottom's all finished. Now we can concentrate on finishing the outside and the inside of the bulb of the mushroom. So I'll just move you guys up here so you guys can see. Just going to put a tennis ball on the end of the tailstock just to give me some extra support. Alright, now for hollowing out the inside of the bowl, just going to use my little spindle gouge here. And I'm just going to do as much of it as I can, hollowing like this. You could do a back hollowing motion to get most of this. Yep, the vibration's got to that crack. You can see it down here. I'm just going to glue this. Glue's dried now, and yeah, that's what I was saying, be careful about how much you tighten up the chuck, because you can split the end. This one already had a little split in it, and with the vibrations that's what caused it to have that big split. But now hopefully with that glue in there I can just clean it up, take that little nub off the end and do some sanding, and we'll be finished, ready for the indexing. Alright, now I'm just going to drill from the top, because the drill bit, as you can see, didn't quite get all the way through. Alright, I drilled through now, and now we'll sand. You want to sand this inside piece first too. And the best way to sort of do that is you either get a little piece of sandpaper and you can roll it up and you can just put it in there like this and go backwards and forwards. And you can also, if you've got a small screwdriver or something like that, you can put the sandpaper around the screwdriver and put it in there. Sort of like that. And just hold it together, and then that way you can put pressure on the sandpaper further down. There we go, sanding all done. Now you could call that quits there. And you could just call that your mushroom, you know, I mean, without drilling the top on there, you could just have that as a mushroom, and you could do any sort of decoration you want on it, pyrography or whatever. But I'm going to show you how I made this one here. So first thing, I'm just going to need to change my chuck for my other one that's got the indexing on the back. Just like that. And now I can put my little indexing jig down here. And this has just got a little nail in it that I can slide in and out with a little switchable magnet to go onto the bedways. So you just line up the little jig there with the holes, so you can pull it out and put it in another one. Got my little pencil platform here, my little platform so I can index the pencil. So on this pattern here we have 6 points basically, making 6 lines. You could do 12, but you end up getting too thin in here, and I'm a bit worried it will snap. As at the moment it's already you get quite a bit of movement in it. Don't know if you can see that really well on the camera or not. So I like to do 6. Now if this was wider and you had a bigger hole, you could probably do 12 or 8 or something like that, but I'm just going to do 6. And on this 24 pin you need to do every 4th one to get the gap. So I'm just going to go through and do that now, just by marking on here. And you want to make sure that your pencil's on halfway when you do this, otherwise it's all going to be offset. It's about it's about halfway. Yeah, so just lightly draw that line on there. And underneath the bulb, all the way around to the bottom. Take the pin out, move it 4 gaps, and draw again. I'll come back once I've done all that. Right, now I've got the 6 lines on here all marked out with the indexing. Now you just need to decide on how thick you want these rings here to be. That's what's going to hold all this together. If it wasn't for these little bits in between here, this would all fall apart. You could leave a top ring here. I found it easier to sand through the gaps. So you just pick a point on the bulb that you think looks thick enough to hold. I reckon about there. And the bottom. And now, because you've got your first line on there, now you need the second one, and I just do the offset with some dividers. And this is actually the measurement from this one, I think. Yeah, it is, I think. So you want to make sure there's enough material up on the spine, because depending on how thick you make this line up here is how thick it is down here. And you do want material down here, otherwise it's just going to snap. That's, like I said, why you can't have 12, otherwise it's going to get too thin up there and it's just going to snap. So you just roughly eyeball that gap. You don't want the gap to be, like I say, overrun the other line, and you want still. So I'm just going to do this measurement on the dividers, mark it here on this bottom circle, bring the mark up to my pencil, and then just follow that line all the way through. And you'll be able to see how thick it is once you draw the line. And then you follow the line up here. And now you can see this is the bit here that's going to get cut out. And I do like to draw where it's going to get cut out, just so you don't, oh, that was the wrong one, just so you don't get too carried away. That's why you use pencil, and you can erase it out. Just redraw that line through. So this is where it's getting removed, all the way up to here. I could actually make that a bit wider, I think. I reckon about there. And adding thickness down here doesn't add very much at the middle because you can see it's wider here than it is down here, but you just need to keep track of that width down here. So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to mark all these out, save you the hassle of watching me do it, and then I'll come back then. Alright, so I've got all those laid out now, all the areas I'm going to be cutting, and I'm just going to be using my Dremel with one of these bits I make. And just to quickly, how you make those bits is I've just got a little jig here. There's a little flattened drill bit that goes into these 3 holes here. And then I just put the bit that starts off as one of these spiral bits and ends up being one of these triangle bits. So I just took that in there, tighten it up, and then I can grind on the side of the wheel, flip it to the next mark, grind it, flip it and grind it. I showed it in my previous video, so I'm not going to show it right now. But I'm going to do the dremeling on the lathe here, the cutting out, and I've just got this little platform here that goes into my banjo. And that works with this other jig here. And this holds the handpiece, and you just push it in and there's just an interference fit there, and that gives me the right distance to get to halfway on the platform over here. So now I should be able to cut these pretty straight. I don't have a spindle lock on this particular lathe, so we'll see how we go. So I actually screwed up. I went over one of the lines there. Because of all the camera and stuff in the way, I couldn't quite see where it was cutting. Let me think about this for a minute. I might have to raise all this out and start again. So I think I got a solution. So all I've done so far is I've just thinned this piece up here on the lathe, and I've just sanded off all the pencil lines, and now I've got the index nail there sitting in one of the holes. Just going to loosen off the jaws, and I'm just going to put this pencil, this is already set at halfway, right on where the edge of that line is, where I overcut. Think about there. Tighten it up. About there. So you can see I overcut by quite a bit. So this is going to be our first line. I'm just going to draw this all the way through. Then I'm just going to take this bottom measurement here, draw that around, and do one on the bottom. Alright, and now I'm going to get the dividers, and I'm going to take this distance. And just leave it there and the colour is set. Take this line through. That's our new measurement there. You can see it's way thicker than before. And now I'm just going to do a wide one for every 3, and then I'm going to see if every second one I can fit a skinny triangle in. So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to do the first 3, the 3 big ones, and that's going to be every 8th line on the indexer. So yeah, I don't think I can really fit another one in that gap there comfortably. So I think I'm just going to leave it as that. I'm just going to cut all these out now. Alright, so now I've got all those triangles cut out now. Now it's time for the fun bit, the sanding. And I'm just going to use one of these little wheels for the Dremel. And I'm just going to do most of the sanding with this. And these grooves, like so. Just spin it there, do it like that. And then to get the nice square edges, I just got this. If you watch my videos before, you'll know what this is. But it's just 2 hacksaw blades folded over the sandpaper, so I can get a nice square edge in there, and I can get down in there. So I probably won't show you much of the sanding, just a little bit, and then we'll skip to once I've finished sanding. I'll be sanding with 180 on this, that's what they come with, and there's a 220 as well. And then on the little stick there I've got 240. All finished with the sanding now, up to 400 grit. And now you could put finish on if you wanted to, like oil or wax. But I've got this little wheel here. It's just a piece of leather. See here, it was just an old thick piece of leather belt or something. And I just cut it up with a chisel here into a circle and put it on with a little mandrel, and then with it on I just sanded it, so now it's a nice round wheel. And I've just been using this to burnish the surface before I put the oil in, and this just gives you a nice glossy finish, and lets you get a glossy finish in all the little crevices in there. Alright, now that's all burnished in there. You can probably see it's got a bit of a gloss on it now. Now here comes the bit where it will show up. Putting oil on, I've just got some pure tung oil here. And a little paintbrush. A little squirt of that. And then start covering it in oil. Make sure you get all been a few minutes now. Just going to dab off the excess. See how much of shine that's got on it. This hasn't got wax on it at all. Make sure you get all those little crevices. And now I'm just going to do the same thing again with the leather wheel. I'm just going to go through and lightly do it. And then you can just sort of keep carrying on this process. Don't hold it on one spot too long, otherwise you'll burn the wood. But that's basically it for the French polishing. And I'm going to add a little bit of wax to this as well. But I'll probably use my other wheel for that. This wheel here. So I'm just going to use some bear wax on this. Just going to put some, just use one of these rags, one of these little microfibers on it. Micro meshes, whatever it is. Cover it in wax. And now I'll just come through with this wheel at a slower RPM and just buff this all in. Pretty good, eh? So I'll just compare that to the other one, which I haven't actually polished. You can see the difference, can't you? This one's actually a lot darker. Same oil, same wax. I just burnished this one with the leather. You can see the difference there, can't you? I mean, this one is just as smooth. Yeah. Anyway, guys, if you made it this far through the video, thanks for watching. Until next time, see you later.